Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Learning This Life podcast. Here we explore key life experiences, the highs, the lows, the lessons learned, all to create inspiration for moving forward. I'm Michonne, your host and the chief conversation starter. And this is our kickoff episode and a space for our who's, whys, and whats. Thank you for listening and sharing your time and space with us. My name is Michelle Artigue, and I want to introduce myself. My name is very French, Louisiana name. My family roots are in Louisiana and Texas, but I actually grew up in Colorado and spent most of my adult life on the East Coast. Learning This Life, the podcast name, has been with me for over 25 years. In my late 20s, early 30s, I wrote a novel, and that was the title. And at the time, what I thought about life was that it was this sort of A to Z experience that you did A, then you after that you did B, C, D, and everything went in order. And what I generally know now about learning and life is that it is a series of boring moments, intense moments, crisis, and in between those, joy, laughter, and happiness. And that you can go from A to T, back to B, A again. And that is how life sometimes moves. I wanted to do this podcast now because the idea came to me actually 10 years ago. And I hesitated for a variety of reasons, which you'll actually learn in listening to future episodes. But now there's a few reasons that I think are very specific. One, there is a general despair, both personal and society, and I wanted to do something more than what I'm doing now. That's connected to a lot of the confusion and chaos that is happening. And one of the things that I like to do is try to create clarity. It's a goal often of mine. And even though that's sometimes challenging, I wanted a space where I could create clarity off of confusion and chaos and sort of combat that despair. And the other piece is I am intimately familiar with crisis and fear more than I care to admit. And it has been both my own and also choices and behaviors of others that have cultivated that experience. But I wanted to create a safe space to explore that because it's a very human experience. And more than anything, y'all, I wanted to create a space where joy could be cultivated, even when talking about hard things. And that's the most important. So here we are. Here's season one. And season one of this podcast is actually going to be a conversation between friends. And I'm so excited to introduce my birthday buddy, Tamara Wilds Lawson. And I'm very excited for she and I to have this conversation over this season. So, Tamara, I'm going to invite her up now. Hi, Tamara.
Hi.
How
I'm
are
s-
you?
I'm good. I'm good. I feel really privileged to be here.
Oh, I'm grateful. Thank you for both the offer to join me in these conversations, but also I'm really excited for people to get an opportunity to know us, know our friendship, and get to hear about some of the lessons that we both have experienced. So I wanted to start. I think we should start just by sort of talking a little bit about how we met. Does that sound like a good place?
It does. It does. It feels like it was I don't know, it feels like it was a lifetime ago, and I guess it was over 20 years ago,
Yeah.
right? I think
Yeah, it was 2002?
yeah, I
Two
think
yeah, I
2002
think
or 2003.
mhm.
Um and that's why I think you're right. I think we probably met around 2002, but I think we became friends um, within a couple of years of that.
Yeah,
And we ended up working together briefly and in a very, I don't think we worked together longer than a couple of months.
Yeah, probably
Um,
like 3 or 4
yeah,
months, something
yeah,
like
at
that.
most, and
Mhm.
just hit it off in a in a really short amount of time, which later we would probably like 5 years later, I think we would figure out some of the reasons why that was. At the time, we
Mhm.
just went with it and we're
Yeah.
like, you know, uh, had an affinity for each other, made each other laugh, had our birthday in common. We're like, okay, this is a new, but then realized that there were some deeper um, lines of connection that
Mhm.
were responsible for that we probably weren't even conscious of. But we came into each other's lives at um, what I didn't know at the time was like a critical juncture in my life as a young woman, but it was.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
how you feel
absolutely.
about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny because, and as many who will listen to this, but many of our friends who will listen to this know I love my friends. I cherish friendships. And so, it was the fact that we became fast friends was not unique to me, but the level to which we connected. And we sort of, I think initially it was like, oh, it's our birthday, but I remember, I don't know if you remember this, we went and got went to Tower Records and got a Jill Scott's CD when
Mhm,
it first came out.
mhm,
And it was just like, there were all these like little markers that I think became threads of connection that I've cherished. And yeah, it's been a lot of years. So I think
yeah.
22, at least 22, 23, because I think I just turned 30 when we became friends. We met, I think I was like 29, but I think I just become 30. So
I think so
yeah.
too. Speaking of friends, you have an amazing group of friends, like your homie, people you had been, um, on a journey with for quite some time. And I think it is worth noting that both of us do, right? Have,
Yeah.
friends, some of whom we've had, like you've got some friends you've had since high school and a core group of friends you've had since um, college. And,
Mhm.
similarly, so I think it's worth noting that we struck up a fast friendship, even though we had abiding um, friendships already. And
Mhm.
I also think it's worth noting that in both cases, when we had the opportunity to meet each other's
Yeah.
existing friends,
Yeah.
um, it felt natural and it just felt organic. And that doesn't always happen. And that's another reason I feel like the universe wanted us to be in each other's lives.
Yeah, I agree. And I started doing this, y'all, because I started stealing Tamara's friends, basically. It's like, oh, that's my friend too. So that's why I was doing that little pool.
Yeah,
Um,
I could be doing
yeah,
the same thing.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So one of the reasons, and I want to kind of talk a little bit. This is our pilot episode, and it's not going to be that long. I just wanted to do an intro for people. We'll do episode one. People will be able to go right into episode one. But I wanted to do this intro one so people could just kind of meet both of us. But, I've been talking about doing something like this for quite a while, and I think that I shared with you some time ago this whole premise of learning this life. I think it was after the novel because I think we kind of met after the novel had already been written and I had sent it off, and then kind of had all of these like crisis things that happened in life. But I certainly started we started talking just about the fact that life is more than, sometimes this kind of textbook thing that, where I was sort of saying it's like A and then you do B and then you do this. And we've both learned that not only through our friendships with others, the things that we've experienced, but I talked to you a bit about I wanted to do this, have these conversations. And so I'm curious, and then I don't know if you have questions for me before we kind of end this pilot, but one, what made you decide to join and sort of say, because you really truly were like, I want to interview you and talk through these with you, like what made you do that, which was such a gift to me, frankly. I'm so glad that you're here, but what made you decide to offer that?
I started by saying it was a privilege for me to be here, and I really meant that. And so that's part of the answer. It's that I've had the privilege of hearing um, your a good amount, having a window into your journey,
Hmm.
and I feel like it's long overdue for you to share it. And I thought that I could be a useful tool for you to excavate
Hmm.
and get out of your head, literally get out of your head and get
Yeah.
out of your own way in sharing. And that the more kind of conversational and the more familiar the process was, the more people would be able to connect with what you want to share and
Yeah.
benefit from it.
Yeah.
And it'll feel familiar because you're right. We have had a lot of conversations about um, points of joy and trauma and transition and grief. And I think there is something very special, Michonne, about how you navigate those things, and the intentionality with which you do it. And so I just thought if there was any way that I could help you do that even more freely,
Hmm.
then it would be it'd be my honor to do that, and it would be a gift to anybody who tunes in.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm gonna tell y'all right now, there ain't no way we getting through all 6 of these episodes without some tears. So I'm just they right here, y'all. They're right right here. So everybody get your Kleenex through the next episode or whatever brand is works for you. But yeah, I appreciate that. And I remember when you offered, and I think it was like kind of like jokingly, like we were kind of like, um joking, but you were like, yeah, and I was like, and I just felt this sense of relief, right? Because relief and release, because I think that you're right. And that's the beautiful thing about friendship, right? Is there's a space where you share things. And as people will learn through some of the episodes, I have held a lot,
Mhm.
both in my body, mind, spirit, and I've wanted to get a lot out for a long time. I'm a writer and a speaker, and wanted to get things out and had been holding. And really, sometimes it feels like holding for this moment that we're in. So to have you join me is just, it's such, I'm so grateful. I've told you I'm grateful. I'm truly grateful. And I'm excited for people to also, I think, see this level of friendship, which both of us are so lucky to have so many people who we have this level of friendship with in our lives. But I think it's good because there's people who don't know that these kinds of conversations can exist between Black women, that they can support each other, that they can that they're not actually trying to tear each other down, beat each other up, that there's actually this space of care. So I'm excited about that. Um, is there anything you want to say, share, or ask before we close this episode?
I do have a question, but before I get to the question, it popped into my head, and it must have popped into my head for a reason, so I'm gonna say it, that, for folks who are watching, listening, we decided to be accountability partners for each other within 5 years? Is that about right, of us becoming friends? And
Probably similar, which I just want to like let people know that we do this all the time. Like we'll be like, I remember in 1982, not that far back,
we
but for
can't
real, we'll
place
be
it.
like
We can't place
in
it.
2007 it was, and it'll take a good half hour for us to like break it down. But I think what happened is we knew each other generally, and then we worked together briefly for like 3 or 4 months. And in
Yes.
that 3 or 4 months, hit it off.
Yep.
And in that year, and we're not going to even talk about what year that was because neither
Yeah.
it'll take us like 20 minutes to
But I
narrow
do
that year.
th no, but we can say that the window was 2002 to 2004, and because I think in 2004, for sure, we were we were
Oh,
homies by then,
oh,
right?
for sure.
So that
Yeah,
means within 5 years of that, we were each other's accountability partners, which until this very moment, I didn't realize how significant it is that we had known each other that long.
yeah.
So, and we're doing something so serious and so important, and that
Hmm.
we did it successfully. The 2 things
Yeah,
we were,
working.
um,
Yeah,
and the reason that popped into my head is because it's another piece of my answer to you about why I wanted to do this,
yeah,
which is because I feel like it's also a source of accountability.
yeah,
It's my way of, um, being here for you and to make sure people get to experience this magic that's
yeah,
been kinda hanging out in your head. And so
yeah.
my question for you is, what are you most excited about as we look ahead to the episodes that are coming?
That's a great question. So I am excited, and y'all will see. When I get really excited, I start brimming. I'm very like physical in my excitement and joy space. Um, I think the first piece is that I have had my own experience, as you referenced some of my friends. I have a lot of friends who we've gone through life together, and one of the things I have sort of noticed, and I don't always say it, but I've noticed, is that sometimes the depth of life is not spoken of in a way that is casual and accessible, so that people have the freedom to actually be, right? And by being, I mean in all of the beautiful and also imperfect ways. And I think that's exciting for me to be able to have these conversations. There are a lot of assumptions about me and my journey, that family, friends, people, colleagues, people who don't fully know the full scope of things. And I'm excited to have that freedom for myself, but also to free others in being able to speak on or talk to either their good friend or whomever, or just within themselves to be like, yeah, you know what? That I went through that experience and it was a lot. And I have a freedom now that I hope people can feel a level of freedom. I know it will free me up
Nice.
because, as you well know, a lot of times people think they know, but they don't have any full idea, of some of the pieces and some of the things that we're going to talk about. The last thing that I think excites me is me stepping into a space as a creative. Um, and I have always been creative in all the spaces that I've tried to inhabit, but I certainly never to this level owned kind of this. I can create content, I can do this, I can do that. And that is something I've committed to doing more and more. And because it was sort of the space that I was in before I began to navigate life. I moved to DC. I was saying earlier, I grew up in Colorado. I went to school in Oklahoma, which was one of the best choices of my life, given the people that I've met there and friendships and all of the things. I moved to DC with like $500 in a suitcase, and moved with some friends, um, and with the intention to be a writer. That was the vision. That was the goal. It was like I can't break into the writing business here, so I'm going to go to a space where I think I can. And then life happened, which we'll talk about, and I'll talk about sort of my own journey. So I'm excited to get the opportunity to step into this creative space in a way that feels powerful and that I have agency in. So I think those are the excite me. It's certainly for me, but I hope that and deeply hope that others gain quite a bit from the conversations that we're about to have.
They will.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. Well, I appreciate it. And, as I think that, as we sort of close this, you all who are watching, I want to thank you again for sharing this space with us, for listening. And I am excited for you to, join us in our episodes. Our next episode is going to be Surviving Life Blindsides, what we do when life hits. So we'll hope you join us. And you can also find me on socials where we continue the conversation. I'm at Michonne Lartigue everywhere. And my website is www.michonnelartigue.com. And feel free to share with anyone who you think would benefit from a space where we are learning life together. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Tamara.
You're welcome.